Hi there. Today is July 16th, Sunday, and this is our Creative Week. I'm your host, Jennifer Vanderbeek of scrapsoflife.com. Hello, how are you? How has your week been? Mine has been busy. The second week of the month for me is often the most fully. And by that I mean I've got back to back book clubs on Monday and Tuesday, usually the second week of the month, and then I also have a craft night on the second Monday of the month, and so that right there just kind of starts things off with a bang. Now this week, in addition to that, Todd was expecting to have to go on a work trip, and notice I said expecting. Yes. Well, his trip was canceled at the last minute Tuesday morning, and so home. But knowing that he was going to be out of town, and knowing that I was probably going to feel a little starved for human contact towards the end of the week, I had made plans to meet up with some friends for dinner on Thursday. I kept those plans, so I had two groups on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and then on Saturday, yesterday, I was at the biweekly writers meetup in Tallahassee. So it was a very people-y week, which I don't mind at all. It was good, but that much peopling is outside of my norm, even for me these days. So yeah, that was a lot of what I did. But being around creative people, the book clubs, the um oh, I did oh, okay. Sidebar to that in a moment. The both book clubs, the craft night, and the writers meetup, that's surrounding myself and being a part of groups that are full of creative people. And that is another way to engage in creativity, um, kind of like the background creativity, that ways of filling up your creative well, um, no matter what you're doing, if you are together with other creative people and you're discussing creativity, even the book clubs, because I've said before that reading a book or listening to an audiobook, they both count. Been watching, movies or shows sometimes. There's different levels of what the brain engages with on those, but especially with reading or listening to books, you're having to like build out what's going on in your head. Yes, there it's on the page or in your ear, but you're still having to conceptualize a lot of stuff, and that is engaging with creativity, and that in and of itself is a creative act. So yes, it was a very creative week on that side of things. Now, on the more visible, practical sides of creativity, um, one of the book clubs is the Book to Art group that I'm a part of. And so the book we were reading this week was a collection of short stories that had to deal with a lot of, or this month, I should say, gender studies. And so the art project that our industrious leader came up with was paper dolls. And I thought that was really interesting. And let me grab them real quick. I was like, I know I'm forgetting to grab one of my things. So she had found, like, on Etsy, for instance, there's all these different creators out there have downloadable printable paper doll patterns, and the one that she had, and she was able to find different body types, different hair types, different clothing types, and it was great. And so one of the ones that I had used was this one is by Victoria Chapman, part of the I believe this is the Minerva collection. And so this was the plus size body. And yeah, we were able to, and, she had like the colored pencils out and everything, and so we were able to color our own little paper dolls, and while we discussed the book, and it was fun. It was just fun. And I love the creative things she comes up with to apply to the different books. um and everybody gets a chance for self-expression, and it's fabulous. Um, at craft night, I was continuing to work on the lace shawl, and I'm into the eighth section. There's nine sections plus the applied borders. So this is the next to last regular section of the thing. And this stitch pattern, close up view here, involves these little clusters of stitches here. And these are called, they're not bobbles, they are called noops. They're spelled N-U-P-P. Um, but it looks like nup, it rhymes with loop, according to the text. And unlike bobbles, which did have some bobbles in the second section, you can see those there. So the bobbles that I'm used to working, you increase, you turn the work, you whatever on the backside, and then you pull them back together. So you do all of the front and back work together as one thing before you move on with the rest of the row. Noops, on the other hand, you increase from like one, in this case it was to seven. So you end up having 7 stitches, 4 knit stitches, and 3 yarn overs into one stitch of the previous row, and then you continue on so that when you're on the other side of the work, and in this case purling across, purl those 7 stitches together into one. Now I had read this, the note about keeping kind of a looser tension on those increased stitches, but apparently I did not take it to heart because I spent the majority of the 2-hour craft night um, working that one reverse pass row, the one wrong side row where I had to work into those increased stitches. Let's see, how many sections are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 9. The purling goes quick, but the 9 noops, finishing those off, took me the better part of 2 hours. It stressed my wrist out because having to work it, I had to like basically, take my needle and spread out the stitches a little bit more and like get some slack on them so that I could get into the yarn overs because the yarn overs were hugging the needle. Yeah. So even though I read it and I knew what it meant and I thought I did okay, I didn't do okay. So by the time I got to the end, my left wrist, especially because I was trying, just holding the needles and the tension and everything. Oh, it was painful. It was painful. So I was like, oh no, I'm not going to do the next row because it was a right side row, so it was not going to be the difficult part. But for each of those 9 pattern repeats or little sections, there were 2. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to start this because I'm not ready to face the the reverse side. I wasn't ready to face the consequences of the action. So I set it down. I packed it up. I just hung out with my friends for the rest of the evening before heading home. And yeah, I kind of had to give my wrist a little bit of a break. But on Friday, after Todd and I got back from dinner, and we were catching up on our shows that we watched together, I went ahead and tackled the next row of the noops. And I was very careful to leave lots of slack in the stitches and the yarn overs on those increases. And guess what? It worked because it did not take me near as much effort. I mean, it was, well, it went the way it was supposed to, okay? Um, to do the reverse row, and then I finished the stitch repeat, and now I'm getting ready to start the next. And yeah, so I felt much better about that, which is kind of where I guess this week's creativity lesson um comes in, or how I'm going to title this is relax. Now this is not the kind of relax where it's like, oh my gosh, calm down, relax, because that has helped when. No, it doesn't. But sometimes need to relax into our art. We need to relax into our creativity and let it have that positive impact without the struggle. Um, Sometimes, some projects, there's always going to be a part in which we we really struggle to get things done and get things where we want them. But at the same time, it's beneficial to us and whatever we're working on, whatever we're practicing, whatever we're making. Take a deep breath and kind of relax into it, instead of fighting it. So yeah, that was my lesson for the week. Now, was that all I did this week? Of course not. I haven't. There's been no more writing this week. But I've been focusing on more the physical, hands-on stuff. Not that hands-on, but you know what I mean. The more tactile projects. And when I'm pretty sure I showed y'all the skirt that I made last week. Well, I also had cut out this top of fabric that would, in a color that would match it well. And I can't remember if I showed this part or not, but had the bobbin timing deal not done whatever it's done um, in my sewing machine, I would have been able to turn this out and have a finished top to wear with the skirt. Instead, I just ended up wearing a white shirt in my closet, and it was perfectly fine. I did, however, point to note, um, the way that skirt is constructed, it's meant to tie, the back comes around and ties in the front comes around and ties in the back, and that's how the skirt stays up. Great in theory, but for my body type and the way I am comfortable in clothing or not, those ties really did feel a little restrictive. And so what I've decided to do is I will go and create a little channel where the fronts and backs meet at the sides, and put some elastic, just a small bit of 1 inch elastic inside there, so that it still has movement to get it on over my hips, but then it will also stay up on its own on my waist without having to do both ties. And then the tie from the front that ends in a more of a decorative bow in the back, that can be purely decorative and not structural. And I think I will be much happier with that skirt once those changes are made. But I did like wearing it. It was so much fun to make, and so much fun to wear. But yeah, so when it comes to this, I was not able to just, whip this simple, very straight line, kind of, it creates like a drop sleeve. There are, the front and back are different lengths, so the back is long enough to cover my tush if I wanted to wear it untucked over some leggings or something. But also, all that's good. But I started hand sewing it because I was like, I can still work on this. There's nothing wrong with hand sewing. I used to hand sew any of the clothing or anything I made, because that's how I learned to sew, and I didn't have that machine. It was my mother had given it to a friend, and that would have been the end of it, except for when that friend ended up moving, she didn't want to take it with her, so she offered it back to my mother, and I said, I'll take it. So yeah, um, haven't tackled that timing issue yet, but in the meantime, I'm hand sewing, and it's kind of relaxing too, along the lines of relaxing into um, the knitting. But unlike the knitting, I don't have to keep referring to patterns or charts. So the other thing, might notice that I have Gerald and Milo here behind me. Um, when I created Gerald, I did not create a base for him. I didn't think it was necessary. In fact, it wasn't even that I thought about creating a base. I just said, okay, cool, he's done. But then when I saw him displayed in the exhibit, I was like, oh, I would have put his legs differently because I drop him off, and the people that are in charge of doing the install, they do the install. So I'm like, a base would have been a good idea. So this week also, I have done a little bit on that. I have cut out. I'm using cardboard for the bases, and different layers of it. Some interest. I thought about using like scrap wood that we have around or even like drywall or something, but then I was like, no, I like the idea of being able to upcycle um, and reuse some materials that otherwise would have gone even into a recycling bin, but I can reduce the amount that I'm even doing there. So these are just Amazon boxes. And they will be covered with the same type of fabric, uh, the, the piece items. Another reason why I'm hoping to get the sewing machine fixed, because I don't want to have to hand sew every seam. That I like to do the base piecing on the machine and then embellish, but what will be will be. I'm also toying with the idea of maybe doing it as like fabric decoupage instead on the lower levels and then just stitching the top level. I don't know. Right now he's kept in pose by just some hair ties. Very inelegant, but they work. And of course, I still need to sculpt his head, but this kind of gives you an idea of how he's going to be posed. Um, and so these will be done in shades of like white and blue again. So like the top two will be like the ice flow, and the bottom will be the blues for the water. So yeah, that's what's going on here. Um, yeah, I worked on else. What else? What else? What else? What else? I think that might be it. Oh, I did a little bit more work on, or I started the colors in more digital art. I don't have that pulled up, but I did get some work done on the accidental zombie convenience food collection. We're calling it the Dead and 11 collection. I expect to have more to show you on that next time. I may even have the colors done for that. But yeah, I ended up missing the Wednesday stream due to a migraine. That was unfortunate. Uh, yeah, so I only had the work from Friday. But Friday, I woke up with a very sore throat, and so it was almost a silent stream. I mean, I had music playing in the background, but yeah, I had a note up on the screen saying it's like I won't be talking. So I got good work done because I wasn't having to multitask. I would love to say that I can switch between tasks quickly enough to make it seem like I'm multitasking, but that is not always the case. At any rate, that's where I've been this week. That's where my creative energies have been, and even though on some ways it doesn't feel like I've done a lot, having just gone through all of that with y'all, yeah, that was not an insignificant amount, was it? I honestly don't know what the next week is going to look like. I don't know if I am going to switch back into writing mode, or if I'm still going to be focusing on the more physical. I don't know. I don't know. I do have therapy this week. That should be it. But I don't have a super people-y. I think there's plans to get together with friends this weekend, but they're undefined. How has your week been? I would love to hear. I would love to hear what you're up to. You can either leave it in the comment section below, or you can hook up with us over on our Discord called the Big Pink House, where you chat between videos, between the streams, and yeah, get to know each other better. And I can have more of an opportunity to support you on your creative endeavors. And yeah, it's just all in the name of fun and creativity and making our lives a little bit better because it's kind of rough out there, you know. There's a lot going on, and sometimes we just need to relax into that creativity so that we can get through and feel good about what we're able to do regardless of anything else. So with that in mind, I wish you a creative week ahead. Hope you find some way to fill your creative well. uh that I'll see you next week. Bye.